My name is Philippe Dunsky. I run a firm based out of Montreal that works with governments and utilities across North America, and we help them to sell the single largest and the single cheapest energy resource that exists on the continent, and that is energy efficiency. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. In this country, as in many others, we spend a lot of time debating energy supply options. Should Newfoundland or Quebec build a hydro dam? Should Ontario continue to push solar and wind? Or should it fall back on gas and nuclear? Should Saskatchewan pour $1 billion+ into a carbon capture and storage coal plant? Should Alberta close its coal plants and push renewables instead? And I'm not even talking about Keystone. We spend a lot of time talking about supply options, talking about the back end of the energy supply, of the energy system, but we often forget that the single greatest resource available to us is actually on the front end. So let me explain. Here we've got, and I'm not sure if you can see it on the screen, but energy supply options going into the Canadian energy system. When we look into that system a little bit further, we see how those supplies make their way from power plants, from mines, from oil and gas fields, into, ultimately, homes, businesses, and cars. In other words, how we get the energy to actually help us heat, light, and move ourselves around. That's what the energy system looks like, and oftentimes we spend a lot of time focused on the left side of that chart. Here's the frustrating piece of this chart, and that is the front end. When you get through that chart, one of the things that you try to do is actually calculate throughout all that process, what have we lost in energy? Because there are a lot of losses. There are losses in converting the energy. There are losses in getting the energy from the plant to the home. There are losses in the home whenever we use our refrigerators, our clothes washers, whenever businesses and industry produce whatever it is that they need to produce. A lot of losses. In fact, 2/3 of the entire energy input into our system serves absolutely no purpose. Zero value. That's a tremendous waste. But that's also a tremendous opportunity. When we look at that side of the equation, 1/3 of all the energy going in provides us heat, light, mobility, and 2/3 provides us nothing. That 2/3 amounts to tens of billions of dollars every single year going right out, literally, the windows. So that's a lot of bad news. The good news is things have started to get a little bit better. Since 1990, our economy has gotten 25% more energy efficient. That means that we now squeeze $34 billion more value out of the energy that we have than we would have otherwise, without those improvements in the efficiency of our appliances, of our cars, of our trucks, of our homes, of our buildings. $34 billion a year is a nice start, but it's nowhere close to where we need to get. Again, keeping in mind, 2/3, even after those improvements, 2/3 of the entire energy system goes to pure waste. So the next question is, at what cost? And here there's good news again. When we look at the data for each and every one of the thousands of power plants, for example, that have come into service over the past several years, and when we look at the cost of every single one of the energy efficiency plans and programs that have been put into place over the past several years across North America, here's what we find. Efficiency, for electricity at least, costs about 2 to 4 cents a kilowatt hour. Every kilowatt hour that we free up, every kilowatt hour that we save, costs us 2 to 4 cents. That's competing against gas plants, it's competing against wind, nuclear, coal, options that cost somewhere in the range of 2 to 8 times more. There's not a single supply option out there that can compete with improved efficiency. So think about that. At a strict minimum, you're looking at saving half of the money when we invest on the efficiency side rather than in the new supply side of the equation. That's a minimum 100% ROI. It's a pretty good return. I know a lot of portfolio managers who would be very interested in that. And that kind of begs the question, well, this sounds a little too good to be true. Why, if there's such great returns, why, if there's such great economics here, is this not happening already? And I can tell you, as someone who's been working in this for over 20 years, many of us have been banging our heads against the proverbial wall for something like 20 years, trying to attract interest, trying to attract capital to this area. And here again, some early good news. In 2010, most recent data, the global investments in clean energy went up to over $230 billion. That's up from about $30 billion a decade ago. So good growth. The energy efficiency part of that is still a small part, but a growing part. In my world, the world of utility energy efficiency programs, in North America, we've gone in the past decade from investing just under $1 billion a year to investing just over $10 billion a year. Again, that's good growth, and yet we're still just barely touching the surface of this opportunity. The really positive news here is that as I continue in this, going into my 24th year now in this field, I'm finding a tremendous surge of interest coming from the private sector, coming especially from capital markets. And it's the first time that we're seeing this, where capital markets are actually looking at efficiency, understanding it as an investment category, gathering the data, dipping toes into the water, and in some cases, diving wholesale. And that is happening at an accelerated pace and at the sort of pace that we absolutely need. So I'm going to leave you with that good side of the news with just one request, and that is that no matter how important the rest of the equation is, the debates between the oil sands and the debates between power sources, let us not forget that this here, the 2/3 of the energy system, remains the single largest and single cheapest energy option available to us. It just happens to be the cleanest one, too. Thank you very much.